our Bible study this morning. We're on page 9, talking about jealousy this morning. We'll begin with a word of prayer. And Wayne, would you lead us in prayer, please? I think it was 2 weeks ago we talked about envy. And sometimes we get the words envy and jealousy confused, get them backwards. A lot of times we use the word jealousy when really we mean envy. But for the most part, we understand, if a person said, I'm jealous of you, probably because we have something that they might want. And that's where it generally goes. But envy is me wanting something that you have. And there's nothing wrong with envy. That's when we go to the point of saying, I'm going to do anything it takes, whatever it takes to get it. There's when it becomes a problem. Again, nothing wrong with wanting what somebody else may have. And then jealousy is me not wanting to give something up. I have something, and somebody's trying to take it away from me. And I don't want to give it up, so I'm jealous over that. I don't want that to happen. I don't want anything to come between me and maybe that relationship I have with somebody, or something that I have, I don't want to let go of it. So there's the difference in jealousy and envy, and sometimes we get them confused, but we know what we're talking about. But throughout the Scriptures, we find several times where the Bible tells us that God is a jealous God. He does not want anything to come between Him and us. He doesn't want anything to disrupt that relationship. He wants us to be right with Him. And hopefully we do our best that doesn't happen. But no, sometimes it happens. He wants to be first in our lives. And hopefully we continue to do that. And certainly God is not envious over anything that we have. Because God doesn't need anything. It's all His anyway. But God can be jealous when something comes between us and Him. So question 1 asks about define jealousy. And it's a defensive reaction to a perceived threat to a valued relationship. So there's that relationship that we have and with God. And here comes something that's beginning to encroach and trying to pull us away. And God is jealous of that. He doesn't want to let us go of anything. And same thing could be in any kind of relationship that we have as humans. We don't want things to come in and take that individual away from us, at least destroy that relationship that we have with that person. Question 2, is jealousy a pleasant attribute? Got Song of Solomon here, chapter 8 and verse 6. It says, the Shulamite to her beloved, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as the grave. Its flames are flames of fire, a most vehement flame. He's talking about marriage here. And jealousy in a marriage can be dangerous. Now, there's a good part about it. We don't want anything to come between us and our spouse. We want to have that type of jealousy there. We want to maintain that relationship. But sometimes it happens when something does come between us and the spouse, and too often it's somebody else. And we don't like that at all when that happens. And that's what he's speaking of here. If that's the wrong kind of jealousy, it can be as strong as death. And how many individuals, whenever a third person comes into that marriage, and maybe the jealous husband, he takes it out on the individual and kills this person. How many times do we see that happening? Well, again, that's what he's speaking of here. This jealousy can be cruel. It can be. and we don't want it. And so a person might say, well, I can't have you, no one can. And then the husband may kill his wife because he's not going to share. So again, it's a bad thing. It can be a bad thing. So that's why we don't want anything to come in between that relationship in our marriages. We don't want anything to come in our relationship between us and God. Jealousy can be difficult when it gets loose. It can destroy. Question 3. How does jealousy affect its possessor? Proverbs 6:34-35. For jealousy is a husband's fury. Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will accept no recompense, nor will he be appeased, though you give many gifts. Too often, again, Proverbs here speaking about the marriage relationship. If something comes in between there, between the husband and wife, the husband here, he'll take vengeance himself. And that's not good when it happens. Because he could get involved in this thing. He could possibly lose his own life. He could take the life of someone else or find himself in a lot of trouble for taking that vengeance on that individual that came between him and his wife. And really nothing can appease him until he gets that out of his system. But when that happens, he better be careful, or instead of letting the courts handle it the way it should be handled, the courts may be handling him. The very thing he didn't want to happen is going to be happening to him. And he'll be going before the judge and be determining if he'll have to spend some life imprisonment or a big fine or something like that. So there again, the possessor of jealousy, jealousy could carry him in places he don't want to go, or her, either one. It can go both ways. So the possessor can certainly suffer because of it. Question 4. How did the law of Moses deal with jealousy between married couples? Now, this is a very unusual situation, what Numbers is speaking of here. If a husband becomes suspicious of his wife, but he has no proof that she's been unfaithful, well, there was a test that God put out there for her to go through that will prove her innocence or her guilt. In Numbers 5:14, if the spirit of jealousy comes upon him and he becomes jealous of his wife who has defiled herself, or if the spirit of jealousy comes upon him and he becomes jealous of his wife, although she has not defiled herself. So he doesn't know. He has suspicions. So what does he do? Well, he takes her to the priest. And the priest mixes up this drink concoction. He takes some holy water. He takes dust off the floor of the tabernacle, mixes it up, and gives it to her to drink. And Numbers 5:27 says, when he has made her drink the water, then it shall be that she has defiled herself and behaved unfaithfully toward her husband, that the water that brings a curse will enter her and become bitter, and her belly will swell, her thigh will rot, and the woman will become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be free and may conceive children. So she drinks this, and reaction to it, what he says here, that shows that she's guilty. She's guilty of unfaithfulness. We don't have any example of this ever happening in the Scriptures where the wife, took the drink. No example of it. But my question is, what if the husband was guilty? What about a test for him? The Bible mentions nothing about that. I don't know why, if the wife is unfaithful, there's got to be another man out there somewhere. You would think it could be, the way things are. But you think another man out there somewhere, why not? He's guilty, and he's probably married, could be married. What about a test for him? But we don't find that. Don't know. But anyway, there's a test of jealousy. The husband here has something that's come between him and his wife. So he takes his wife and puts her through this test. If you notice there what we read, he makes her drink it. She's not too willingly want to drink this stuff, but he had to make her. But anyway, that's a test that they had there, but again, we don't find anywhere it happened. It was just there to provide an answer should it come about. Question 5. What problems were created in Jacob's household by jealousy? Genesis 30, 1 and 2. This is between Rachel and Leah. And it says, and when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, give me children or else I die. And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? So here's some jealousy. Rachel couldn't have children. Leah could. And Rachel saw this as coming between her and Jacob because of Leah's able to have children. She couldn't. Therefore, that was causing problems in the marriage relationship. Again, Jacob didn't really need 2 wives to begin with, but he did here. And again, problems were coming about because of it. But there's both, in this story, there's both envy and jealousy involved here. But Rachel goes to Jacob. She puts the blame on him, and he says, who am I? I can't do anything about this. I'm not God. Could control this. So there's a situation there where you had both envy and jealousy, but still Rachel was the one that had the problems. Question 6. What problems are created in the church by jealousy? 3 John in verse 9. Here John says, I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have preeminence among them, does not receive us. Diotrephes did not want John. He didn't want John to be telling the church, here's what's right and what's wrong. Diotrephes was jealous of John. John was coming between him and the church. He didn't want the church to listen to John. And John was right. And Diotrephes was the one who had this control problem. He wanted all control. He wanted to be the one in charge of things. And John comes in and says, he's not right. Don't listen to him. Listen to me. I'm the apostle about this. And he's trying to convince the church of the error of what Diotrephes was doing. So here was a problem because of the one individual who thought he was in charge of everything. Everything was up to him. And I guess it can happen in church today. You can have individuals who have a little too much, pride about themselves. Might work in some ways. Pride. They don't want to listen. They want to do it their way, and it's their way or no way, and their ways are always the right ways, and going to work. And then whenever they're confronted about it, they don't like it. Don't like it. Don't want to give up that power that's there, maybe. So there's still problems in the church today because of jealousy. Still with us. Question 7. Is all jealousy bad? 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2. Paul says, for I am jealous for you with godly jealousy. For I have betrothed you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. He wasn't jealous of the Corinthian church. He was jealous for them. And that being, he had a special connection with the Corinthian church. He loved the congregation. He didn't want them to depart from Christ. He was one that introduced them to Christ, the one that helped them to converts and started a church there. And he wanted them to continue in that. He was jealous for them. He loved to see their commitment. But they had problems, especially in 1 Corinthians. There's a lot of problems there. But in 2 Corinthians, it seems that they're getting this all under control, and he's glad of that, and he's wanting that to be a continuation, a thing for them to do. So, when we have, individuals that we love greatly, family members we'll say, or maybe good friends, and they're Christians, and we don't see anything come between them and God. We don't want that to happen. And we pray about that, and hopefully that they can remain strong, and if they're away, they'll come back. We pray for that. And that's what Paul is simply doing right here. He is jealous for them in a standpoint, I want you to remain strong. Continue doing the right thing here. It's what he's wanting. And he wants nothing to come between them and God. So again, there can be a good jealousy that we have. Wanting them people to do and continue to do the right thing. Question 8. What is said of God? Exodus 20 and verse 5. Here it says, you shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. And this isn't the only time where God speaks of being a jealous God. Again, he doesn't want anything to come between him and his people, him and his children. Doesn't want anything to come between them. And we know in the case of Exodus, whenever they left out, the first thing they did out here, they got that golden calf going and started it. And then many, many, many times things would come between them and God, and he would discipline them, and they would be okay for a while, and then here they go back again. He didn't want that. And he doesn't want it today. The Bible's plain in showing us that God is a jealous God. Question 9. To prevent jealousy, what must our attitude be toward others? A whole list of things here. Romans 12 and verse 9. But the first thing he says in verse 9, let love be without hypocrisy. Here's a warning to us. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't go out here and say things and do things, and yet they're not really from the heart. And he starts giving the list here. Hate what is evil. Okay, we say we hate, abhor, or hate what is evil. We say we hate it, but we turn around and we do it. Well, that's being a hypocrite. Don't do that, he says. Cling to what is good. Oh, we say we love what is good, but we never cling to it. We don't do it. And he goes on, like in verse 10, be kindly affectionate to one another. Again, we talk about it all day long. How it's good, but yet do we do it? And he goes on, like in verse 14, bless those who persecute you. Do we do that? Probably not. They persecute us. We want somebody to take revenge on them. Bless them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Do we rejoice with those who rejoice? Are we happy for them? Or are we saying, well, they don't deserve that. They didn't do it the right way. I'm doing all this, not getting anything. Where do we go with it? Again, it's a lot of things there he speaks of in those verses in Romans 12. And the main thing he's telling us here, don't be a hypocrite. Do these things. Do them right. And don't let jealousy get involved and cause a problem between you and someone else. Question 10. What person set a good example of freedom from jealousy? John 1:15 and also verse 27. This is John the Baptist. It says here, John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, this was he of whom I said, who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. It is he, verse 27, it is he who coming after me is preferred before me, whose sandal strap I am not worthy to loose. Of course, this is John the Baptist, as he was forerunner of Christ. And there wasn't one jealous bone in John's body, not one. He wanted Christ to succeed. He wanted the people to believe in him, and he did his very best in teaching that Christ is coming. And then after he arrived, he said, this is the one. This is it. As he baptized Christ and heard God speak, this is my beloved Son, whom I'm well pleased, hear him. So he was certainly one that was not jealous of any way or envious of any way of Christ. Now, as far as we know in the Scriptures, John never performed a miracle. He was a prophet, and he could teach. He had that gift, the Holy Spirit, where he could teach. As far as we know, he never performed a miracle. You think he was jealous or envious of what Christ was doing? He was not in the least. He was a preacher of righteousness, is what he was, and he continued to do the right thing. Question 11. Can we overcome jealousy? Genesis 37 and verse 4, speaking of Joseph and the conflict he had with his brothers. It says, but when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. So the brothers were jealous of Joseph, because Joseph was getting all the attention. He was there with his father, and they didn't want that. They wanted nothing come between them and their father's relationship. And it's a lot Jacob's fault for letting this happen, but he loved Joseph more than the others. And then in Genesis 15 verse 5, this is when everything is sort of coming to a close here, whenever the brothers recognized Joseph later on. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him. So this is after Jacob dies, and their brothers are thinking he's going to get us now. He's going to unload on us. He's going to punish us for the way we treated him, for selling him into slavery and trying to kill him. But it didn't happen, as we know. In Genesis 15, verse 21, Joseph says, now therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph didn't let this envy or jealousy cause harm in his family. He knew that God had used this for his good, for the good of everybody, in the position that he was in. He did it for the good. And then, number 12, can jealousy be self-destructive? This is the case of Esther, Esther 5 and verse 9. Haman was one who hated Mordecai. Mordecai saved the life of the king. The king wanted to reward Mordecai for this. But Haman didn't like Mordecai. He hated him. And Haman was going to try to frame Mordecai and get him to be hung. And Haman went out and built the gallows for him to die on. Well, here comes this big celebration. And Haman thinks the celebration is for him. They go to this big party. And there's the king, and there's Mordecai. And Haman's probably thinking, what's Mordecai here for? And then the king says, we're going to be celebrating Mordecai. And Haman didn't like it. And it got back to the king what Haman had done, how he's trying to frame Mordecai. And there in Esther 5 and verse 9, so Haman went out that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with indignation against Mordecai. That's when he wanted to kill him. And then 7 in verse 10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows, which he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. So there's his jealousy sort of backfired on him. And he died the very way he was preparing to kill Mordecai with. Good story there in Esther. And then we got the classroom questions. What do you think is the basic cause for most jealousy? There's insecurity. That's a lot to do with it. The feeling of betrayal. You've been betrayed by somebody. Or you want to try to control something, a situation or somebody. Or you have unrealistic expectations of a situation or somebody. All these things can bring about jealousy, and got to be on the guard against it. Number 2, what are the symptoms of jealousy? Again, a lack of trust. Maybe when somebody receives praise for something and you don't like it, that may be a little red flag. You're sort of jealous. You're jealous. Trying to control someone, maybe. And then 3, if you were jealous of someone, how would you handle it? We just got to recognize it and be honest with yourself and not let it happen. Got to recognize it. That's the first part. If you don't recognize it, there could very well be a problem. So jealousy, part of it, part of life, but we've got to keep it under control. Anything on jealousy? All right, next week, page 10, talk about prejudice a little bit. Go with that.